The world doesn't feel like a world anymore. It feels like a wound that never closes, a place stuck in its own fever, sweating, burning, refusing to heal. The season came and never left, an endless summer without rain, without relief. Heat has become the rhythm of life, beating down on us in waves so heavy that even the air feels bruised. The sky is not blue. It hasn't been for years. Instead, it hangs in shades of ochre and ash, smeared with the smoke of wildfires that never seem to die, only pause and then roar back again. The sun, once something we welcomed, is now a swollen, white-hot disk that cooks the earth wherever it touches. People used to worship the sun. Now we curse it like an enemy we can never defeat. Where rivers once ran, there is only dust. I walked the Missouri riverbed last winter, or what passes for winter now, and it was nothing more than cracked earth, a hollow skeleton of what once carried life across a continent. The wind screamed across its emptiness, picking up dust and memories alike. Fish bones lay bleached in the open, fossilized before their time. The towns that leaned on its water are ghosts, their water towers standing like gravestones above fields of brittle stalks. Forests. They're mostly gone, some burned, some withered where they stood, starved of rain until their trunks cracked and their roots turned to powder. Once you could step into the shade and breathe cool air beneath green canopies. Now shade is a rare currency, and the trees that remain are twisted husks, their bark stripped by scavengers desperate for fuel. Even the animals that once haunted the woods are mostly whispers. Coyotes still howl at night, but thinner, hungrier, closer than they used to. Birds have grown silent, their migrations broken by a world that forgot how to change seasons. Cities fared no better. Concrete was never meant to withstand this kind of heat. Highways ripple and crack. Skyscrapers sag beneath their own weight as glass bursts from the pressure of long, punishing summers. Asphalt softens, swallowing shoes, tires, even whole vehicles when the heat is at its peak. Once, billboards shouted promises of convenience, vacations, products to make life easier. Now they lean over empty highways, their paint peeled away, metal frames rattling in the hot wind. Malls are caverns filled with dust. Airports are skeletal, their runways buried beneath sand and weeds. Governments? Gone, or at least gone from where we can see them. Maybe some pieces still exist behind walls of steel and secrecy, clinging to bunkers stocked with supplies they'll never share. For the rest of us, there's no order, just small enclaves that rise and fall like sparks in the dark. Survivor. Groups form, swear loyalty, then dissolve when hunger or distrust gnaws too deep. Factions hoard what little is left. Water barrels, canned food, fuel. Raiders prowl the highways, scavenging the bones of the old world and leaving violence in their wake. Trust is a luxury few can afford. The institutions that once defined our lives, schools, hospitals, even churches, have collapsed into silence. Some buildings still stand, but they are gutted, stripped for whatever could be carried away. A school desk becomes firewood. An operating table becomes scrap metal. Stained glass windows from old churches were pried out and sold long ago, replaced by boarded up holes that let the smoke drift in. There are still prayers whispered in the dark, but they are quieter now, offered not to God, but to the hope that tomorrow won't be worse, and it always is worse. That's the unspoken truth no one dares to say out loud. The heat deepens, storms grow harsher, resources dwindle. Every sunrise feels more dangerous than the last. People wake with dread in their chests, wondering if today will be the day the water runs out, or the food spoils, or the storm walls rise so high there's nowhere left to hide. I remember when maps meant something. Roads connected cities, borders, meant nations, and the names of rivers and mountains carried weight. Now maps are lies. Roads vanish beneath shifting dunes. Bridges collapse into gulfs of dust, and rivers are nothing but scars across the land. People don't talk in terms of states or countries anymore. They talk in terms of distances to water, to shade, to safety. A landmark now is a collapsed water tower, or a burned-out gas station where someone swears they once found food. The air itself is a hazard. Dust storms roll across the plains, choking everything in their path. The fine grit gets into lungs, eyes, machines. Breathing without cloth wrapped across your face is a death wish. Some nights, the storms glow faintly with static, lightning crackling inside them like something alive. People whisper that the storms think, that they hunt. It sounds ridiculous until you've stood in the dark and heard the rumble coming closer, the wall of dust swallowing the horizon, the earth trembling beneath your feet. And still, despite it all, people cling to survival. Scavengers comb the ruins, trading rusted tools for scraps of food. Small camps huddle in abandoned motels, their windows blacked out, their doors barricaded with furniture. Old radio towers hum faintly, some still carrying signals, faint, broken, but real. Those voices are like ghosts, fragments of humanity still daring to reach across the static. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's warnings, sometimes just a voice telling the night they're still alive. I think about what it must look like from above, if there's anyone left above to see it. A world cracked open, bled dry, dotted with sparks of human defiance. But down here, on the ground, it feels different. It feels like standing at the edge of a fire that will never burn out, caught in the heat of a season that has no end, and through it all, one question lingers, clawing at every thought. How much longer can we endure before the world finally decides to finish what it started? My name doesn't matter anymore, not really. Once it carried weight, letters on a paycheck, a signature on forms, the kind of name people would call across the dinner table or shout down a crowded hallway. Now it's just a word that hangs in my throat, heavy with dust and silence. Out here, names don't keep you alive. What keeps you alive is water, shade, a steady enough hand to keep the generator turning long enough for my voice to crawl out, through the static. Still, for the sake of memory, for the sake of whatever poor soul might hear this transmission and wonder who the ghost in the radio is, I'll tell you. My name is Miles Harrington. Once, I was a teacher. History, if you can believe it. The irony isn't lost on me. That I taught people about the rise and fall of civilizations, about collapses written in textbooks, about the fragility of human achievement. And now here I am, living inside the very collapse I used to lecture about, reduced to scavenging through ruins of what we once were. I didn't plan on becoming a broadcaster. I stumbled into it the way most of us stumble into survival. Clumsily, half by chance, half by desperation. I found the station in what used to be a community college, its radio club long since abandoned. The equipment was still there. Cracked. Microphones, a dented transmitter, a few spools of wire that hadn't yet been stolen. I patched it together with scrap, ran cables through broken windows, and powered it with a pedal generator I found in the gymnasium. Every word I speak to, you cost sweat. Every sentence is paid for by the ache in my calves and the burn in my lungs. Why do I do it? Why keep talking into the static when I have no proof anyone's listening? Some nights, I ask myself the same thing. Maybe it's habit, maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's because silence feels like a second death, and I'm not ready to die twice. I once had a family, a wife, Elena, with a laugh that cut through the worst of my moods. A daughter, Sarah, who loved to paint suns. Ironic, isn't it? Bright yellow suns across blue construction paper. I kept one of those paintings in my wallet for years until the ink bled away in the heat and the paper crumbled into nothing. They're gone now. Eleanor was lost to fever during the second year of the drought. Sarah? I don't talk about Sarah often. Some wounds never close, no matter how much dust you bury them under. Loss changes you. It hollows you, carves out the center of who you are and leaves you echoing. I carry that echo every day. But sometimes, when I sit by the radio and speak into the static, I feel like I'm filling that hollow space with something, even if it's just my own broken words bouncing back at me. Survival here isn't about thriving, it's about enduring. My routines are simple, because simplicity is the only thing that works anymore. Wake before the sun rises too high, because once the heat sets in, movement becomes dangerous. Check the traps I set for rodents. Scavenge through abandoned buildings for cans or bottles left behind. Boil what little water I can find in a cracked metal pot, though more often than not, it tastes of rust and dust. When storms roll through, I barricade myself inside the station, sealing the doors with rags to keep out the grit. I keep a notebook too, scraps of paper stitched together with wire, where I jot down everything I observe. The patterns of the storms, the places where water might collect after rare rains, the names of people I meet along the way. Some might call it pointless, but writing things down feels like resistance, as if putting ink on paper can keep the world from disappearing entirely. What drives me? Not faith. That burned out of me when I buried Elena. Not hope, not in the traditional sense. Hope feels like a dangerous thing in a world like this. But connection, yes, maybe that's it. The idea that someone, somewhere, might hear me. That my voice might stumble across the static and remind another survivor that they're not alone. Humans were never meant to live like this, scattered, silent, afraid of each other. We're wired for community, for stories, for voices in the dark, so I speak, even if it's into emptiness, even if the radio tower hums to no one but the wind. Sometimes I imagine the listener. Maybe it's a boy in the ruins of St. Louis, huddled beside his mother, twisting the dial until my words bleed through. Maybe it's a caravan of scavengers driving north, radios strapped to their dashboards, pausing when they hear a stranger's voice breaking through the static. Maybe it's no one at all, and I'm only ever speaking to myself. But even then, the act matters. Talking matters. I've met people along the way, though fewer than you'd think. There was Jonah, a former paramedic, who carried a satchel of bandages and insisted he'd find enough people to start a clinic again. He lasted 3 months before the raiders found him. There was Ruth, an old woman who still carried a rosary, her fingers worn smooth from prayer. She said the end of the world was just the beginning of something else. I wanted to believe her, but faith never sat easy with me. She disappeared one morning, left without a word. Maybe she found peace. Maybe the storm took her. That's the way it is now. People vanish, and you learn not to ask where they've gone. My body is weaker than it used to be, scarred, sunburned, ribs too visible beneath the skin. But it still moves, still works the pedals, still scavenges the ruins. I tell myself that as long as I can still generate power, still push words through the static, I haven't lost everything. Sometimes, late at night, I catch echoes on the radio. Not voices, not clear ones, just fragments. A burst of music, a word half swallowed by static. Once I swore I heard laughter, real, human laughter, drifting across the frequencies. I don't know if it was a recording or a living voice. But it was enough to keep me going another day. That's what survival looks like now, chasing after fragments, clutching to small things that remind you of life. I've learned not to expect miracles, but I've also learned that as long as I can keep the pedal turning, as long as my voice can bleed into the air, I'm still part of something bigger. Maybe it's memory. Maybe it's defiance. Maybe it's just the stubborn refusal to disappear. This is who I am now, a voice in the static, a shadow of what once was, a man who lost everything but refuses to let the silence win. And if you're out there, if you can hear me, then maybe, just maybe, that's enough reason to keep going. The Missouri River was the first betrayal. When it dried, people finally understood that this wasn't a drought you could just outlast. It was a theft, a robbery of something we thought was eternal. 3 years now, maybe 4, and not a drop has touched that riverbed. Cracked earth runs like veins through its old channels, curling into splintered shapes that whisper like broken glass when the wind runs across them. I tell myself sometimes that if the river could vanish, then so can we. It's a thought that tastes like metal in the mouth, bitter, dangerous, but it's true. The land has stopped breathing, and we are just lungs trying to gasp in a vacuum. Every day survival becomes harder, not because I've grown weaker, though I have, but because the world itself feels like it's tightening the noose. The sun feels closer now. I can't explain it in measurements, not precisely, but anyone who's lived through these years can feel it. The heat doesn't just press down from above. It radiates up from the ground. It hums in the air. It seeps into your bones. Asphalt doesn't just soften, it liquefies. Metal will burn your skin if you touch it too long. And water. God, water is no longer a resource. It's a currency, a religion, a weapon. The wells ran dry first, then the reservoirs. By the time the rivers cracked open, most towns had already fractured into fighting, into factions. When a gallon of water became worth more than a sack of food, the world changed overnight. Raiders rose up, traveling in packs, armed with scavenged rifles and sharpened steel. Not for gold, not for territory, only for water. Families turned on each other. I watched a father beat his own brother bloody over a half-full canteen. I wanted to stop him. I didn't. I learned early that survival sometimes means watching the world bleed and pretending your hands are clean. My generator is powered by sweat, but my body is powered by water, and that's the cruel joke of it all. Every pedal, every word into this microphone burns through the most precious resource I have left. I ration carefully, sometimes dangerously so. A cup in the morning, a swallow at midday, another ration at night. Dehydration eats at you slowly. First the headaches, then the dizziness, then the cramps in your muscles that turn your body into a cage of pain. I know the signs too well. I've brushed against them too often. Food is scarce too, but food you can stretch. A handful of rice can last a day if you chew slow enough, if you let the starch trick your stomach into silence. But water, you can't cheat water. You can't make it from nothing, no matter how many old filters you rig, no matter how much dew you scrape off tarps in the mornings. When I was a teacher, I told my students about the water cycle, about evaporation, condensation, precipitation, a closed loop, a promise the planet made to itself. What goes up must come down. But that promise was broken. Warmer air holds more vapor. It rises higher, lingers longer. Clouds form and dissolve, without raining, carrying their gifts away to oceans instead of land. Jet streams shifted, patterns unraveled, the rain stopped. And without rain, there is no cycle, just an open wound where a closed loop used to be. The storms we do get are killers. They don't bring water, they bring dust, walls of it miles high, rolling across the plains like moving mountains. I've seen them swallow entire towns in minutes. The grit gets into everything. Lungs, gears, blood. You choke, you suffocate, or you get buried alive. I've learned to watch the horizon like a hawk, to read the shimmer in the air that means a storm is building. When it comes, you have minutes to seal everything tight, to cover your mouth, to hide in whatever shelter hasn't already been claimed by collapse. The last storm tore through here a month ago. I was holed up in the station, pressing rags into every crack I could find, when I heard the pounding on the door. A man, maybe two, shouting through the howling wind, begging. I froze. Opening the door could mean sharing my water, my food, my already thin survival. Not opening meant condemning them to the storm. I stayed silent. The wind drowned their voices, then swallowed them whole. When the storm passed, I opened the door. The sand had buried half the building. There were no bodies, only footprints, ending abruptly as if they'd been erased. I tell myself they made it to another shelter, but I know the truth. That's what survival does to you. It makes you complicit in every death you don't stop. It makes you carry ghosts. Sometimes I wonder if I should head north. Rumors say there are enclaves near the lakes, that they've built filtration systems, that rain still falls there. But rumors are as dangerous as thirst. People chase them, desperate, only to find ambushes or empty promises. A man I met, Thomas, swore he'd heard of a place where water flowed freely. He left with a group of 6, carrying nothing but hope and empty canteens. I passed their camp weeks later, empty, abandoned, no sign of life. The raiders are worse now. Desperation sharpens cruelty. They roam in trucks patched together from scrap, their engines coughing smoke, their rifles slung loose across their backs. They don't bother with threats anymore. They shoot first, strip bodies later. I've seen their work. Blood soaking into dust, canteens ripped from belts, boots stolen off cooling feet. Once, I found a body hanging from a water tower, a plastic jug tied to its hands like some twisted warning. Water belongs to those who can take it, but it isn't just raiders that make survival harder. It's time. The longer this goes on, the more the old world crumbles. Fuel spoils. Batteries die. Medicine expires. What was once plentiful in the ruins has been picked clean, leaving only scraps. Every trip into the wasteland yields less than the last. Soon, there will be nothing left to scavenge. I keep records, out of habit, more than hope. Temperatures, rainfall, or the absence of it, wind speeds. I've seen the numbers rise each year, the highs climbing like a cruel joke. It used to be, we feared a week over 100 degrees. Now it's months. 120 is common. 130 is no longer myth. Heat like that doesn't just kill crops. It cooks the soil itself, sterilizes it, until nothing will grow again. The land isn't just barren, it's dead. And the nights aren't much better. The heat lingers, trapped in the concrete and steel, radiating back long after the sun sets. Sleep becomes a battle. You lie there, sweating, dizzy, heart racing, praying for a breeze that never comes. Heat stroke is as much an enemy as hunger or raiders. So why am I still alive? I ask myself that every morning. Maybe it's stubbornness. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's because every time I speak into this radio, I imagine someone out there listening, someone who hasn't given up yet. And maybe that means I can't give up either. If you're hearing this, if the static has carried my voice across the miles, then let me tell you this. Survive smart. Water is your lifeline. Never drink until you know you'll find more. Shade is salvation. Never walk under the sun longer than you must. Wrap your face. Protect your lungs. The storm will take you faster than the thirst if you're careless. And never ever trust the ones who smile too easily. Desperation hides sharp teeth. The crisis we face isn't a moment in time. It's a season without end. A season that has stretched so long, it's become the only reality we know. I don't know if there's a way back. I don't know if the earth can heal, but I know this. Every day we wake up, every day we endure, is another day we deny the end its victory. The Missouri River is gone. The rain is gone. Civilization is gone. But we are not gone. Not yet. And as long as someone can hear me, as long as my voice can bleed into the static, then maybe there's still a fight worth having. The air today tastes like ash. No fire in sight. No smoke on the horizon. Yet every breath scratches the throat, as if the sky itself is burning. That's the thing about this world now. It doesn't need flames to burn. It finds new ways to remind you you're not welcome here anymore. Water's gone thin. I've been rationing down to half what I used to allow myself. A swallow in the morning, another at night. Just enough to keep the headaches from blinding me. Not enough to keep the skin from cracking. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. My lips split when I try to speak too long. Sometimes I think I sound like gravel on this microphone. The food situation is worse. The last sack of rice is nothing but dust at the bottom of its bag. I've got some canned beans left, but the metal's rusting on the edges. You learn to ignore the taste of iron. Hunger's patient, though. It waits. It doesn't strike like thirst does. Hunger sits quietly in the corner, letting you think you've outsmarted it. until your hands start trembling and your legs don't hold you steady anymore. The generator, my lifeline, my companion, has started to falter. The belt slips, the gears grind. I know how to fix some things, but every repair drains my supplies. Oil, replacement parts, scrap that used to be everywhere but now is as rare as water itself. Sometimes, as I pedal to keep the power flowing, I wonder which will give out first, me or the machine. 2 nights ago, I had my first visitor in months. Not someone calling for help in the middle of a dust storm. Not a voice carried on the static, but real footsteps crunching across the dried gravel outside. I killed the light, grabbed the rifle I keep leaned against the wall. My hands shook as I aimed it toward the door, every nerve screaming that this was it, that this was the night someone decided my supplies were theirs. The knocking came soft, not like the pounding of raiders, but careful. A voice followed. A woman's, hoarse, tired. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "Just water. Please." I didn't open the door. Couldn't. Every story I've heard tells me mercy gets you killed. Raiders use bait. Children crying. Women begging. Open the door and 10 rifles are waiting in the shadows. I stayed silent, heart hammering. The knocking grew weaker, then stopped. By dawn, the dust outside was undisturbed. No footprints, no body, just absence. It should have made me feel safer, but instead, it hollowed me out. If she was real, then I left her to die. If she wasn't, then I proved myself paranoid enough to survive. Either way, I hated the choice. The world doesn't run on right and wrong anymore. It runs on rationing, on calculus, on weighing ounces of water against the weight of a conscience. And yet, her voice lingers. Every time I close my eyes, I hear it again, cracked and desperate. I've lived too long on ghosts already. There are whispers of something to the north. I've heard them enough times now to know they're either persistent lies or stubborn truth. A lake that hasn't dried. A group of engineers who've built a working desalination rig. A community that has enough water not just to survive but to share. The static carries the rumors, fragments of broken broadcasts, stories past, from scavenger to scavenger. Most dismiss it as fantasy, the kind of hope that gets you killed when you chase it too far. But lately, I've been wondering if sitting here waiting for my generator to die isn't just another kind of suicide. Trust is the hardest part. If I leave this station, I'll need help. A journey like that can't be done alone. Not without protection, not without more supplies than I can carry. But trusting anyone is gambling your throat. I've seen men murdered in their sleep by the same companions they walked beside for weeks. I've seen kindness twisted into bait. And yet, I can't shake it. The thought that maybe, just maybe, there's something more than this endless waiting. Yesterday, I scavenged the town west of here. Most of the buildings are skeletons now, ribs of steel and bone-white concrete jutting out of the dust. Inside an old grocery store, I found shelves stripped bare, but in the back, a single bottle of water. Dusty, half full, but sealed. The sight of it nearly broke me. I sat there staring at it, too afraid to believe it was real. I rationed it, of course, but that first sip felt like salvation. On the way out, I wasn't alone. A group, 5 of them, stepped from the ruins, armed, thin, sunburned. Raiders, though not the wild-eyed kind. Survivors, maybe, but hungry enough to kill. They demanded the bottle. I had my rifle raised before I even thought about it. The standoff stretched, the silence louder than any gunshot. In the end, they let me pass. Or maybe they saw the desperation in my eyes and realized I'd shoot first, consequences be damned. Still, I could feel their hunger following me all the way back here. Every encounter leaves me more hollow. Every decision carves another piece out of me. How much can a man give away before there's nothing left? The environmental shifts are accelerating. I've been charting the temperatures, And the curve isn't slowing, it's climbing. The heat dome above this region stretches farther each year. Birds no longer migrate here. There are no insects, no buzz of life at dusk. The soil is powder, so dry that even cactus won't root. This is death, stretched wide across hundreds of miles. Science says once a system collapses past a tipping, point recovery is almost impossible. Maybe that's where we are, past the point of healing. I keep hoping that the cycle will shift again, that rain will return. But hope is a dangerous thing. Hope gets you chasing mirages. Still, when I close my eyes, I see water. I see it rippling under a blue sky, hear it rushing over stones, smell it clean and cool. The memory is so sharp, it feels like pain. I wonder if that's what keeps me alive. Not survival, not stubbornness, but the sheer cruelty of memory. If you're listening out there, if you've heard these same rumors of the North, then maybe you know the pull I'm feeling. Maybe you've felt it in your bones, that ache to believe in something bigger than bare survival. But here's the truth I can't escape. To follow that thread of hope means trust. It means walking roads where raiders wait. It means risking betrayal by anyone I join. It means stepping into uncertainty, leaving behind the one thing I've managed to hold together. Every choice now feels like flipping a coin with my life on the line. Heads, I die alone in this station, the generator grinding to silence, my voice lost in the static. Tails, I die on the road, my canteen dry, the promise of water nothing but a mirage. But there's a third side to the coin, invisible, impossible, and maybe that's survival. Maybe it's finding the thing that feels impossible and chasing it anyway. I don't know yet which choice I'll make, but the tension in my chest grows heavier every day, and the static whispers louder. The sky broke, this morning, not with light, not with rain, with movement. I've been watching the horizon for months now, studying the way the heat shimmered, the way dust rose in distant columns. Today, something new appeared. A wall, black, jagged, and rolling toward me like a living thing. A dust storm, bigger than anything I've seen before. The kind that swallows whole cities and leaves behind nothing but skeletons. The air's already changing. It hums with static, makes the hair on my arms rise. The wind claws at the station's siding, slipping, dust through every crack. I've sealed the windows, but it's useless. The storm will eat the building whole. I should be afraid. I am afraid. But fear feels different now. It's not the sharp stab I felt in the early days, when I first realized the world was falling apart. It's something heavier, slower, like resignation, like being pulled under by a current you can't fight. This storm doesn't just threaten the station, it threatens the choice I've been circling for weeks. Stay here, with the failing generator, the dwindling food, the voice that may never reach another living soul, or go north, chase the rumors of water, risk betrayal and death on the road. Now the decision is being made for me. The storm is the coin toss. I've packed what little I can carry, the last cans of beans, a knife, the rifle with 10 bullets left, a half-empty bottle of water, my notebook too, because if I die, I want proof that someone tried to remember. The generator will stay behind. I can't carry it, and even if I could, it would be useless without power. My voice will go silent when I leave. The thought cuts deeper than I expected. I pedal one last time, pushing words into the static. My throat is dry, but I force the message out. If anyone can hear me, this is Miles Harrington. The station's finished. The storm's coming. I'm heading north. If the rumors are true, maybe we'll meet there. If they're lies, then this is goodbye. I don't know if anyone's listening. I don't know if the signal even carries past the next ridge. But saying it feels like sealing a promise. The wind howls now. Dust creeps under the door, thick enough to taste. The walls shake. I sling the pack over my shoulders and step outside. The world has vanished. The horizon's gone. The sky blotted out. The storm is a living wall, miles high, rolling forward with the roar of a collapsing mountain. My first instinct is to turn back, to bury myself in the radio booth and wait it out. But I know what happens when you wait out storms this size. You don't wake up again. So I move. North. Always north. The storm chases. Visibility drops to nothing. Dust blinds my eyes, fills my lungs. Every breath is a knife. I wrap a cloth around my face, but it's not enough. The wind shoves me sideways, steals my balance. I stumble through ruins of buildings that used to be homes, through streets cracked like dry skin. Shapes loom in the storm, twisted metal, shattered glass, skeletal trees stripped bare decades ago. I don't know how long I walk. Time vanishes. Inside the storm, every step is survival. Every step is defiance. My legs ache, my lungs burn, my water sloshes dangerously low. Then, movement ahead. Not the storm, not debris. People. At first I think they're phantoms, tricks of the dust, but they move with purpose, heads wrapped in cloth, bodies bent against the wind. A group, 4, maybe 5. They've seen me too. Weapons glint in their hands. Raiders, survivors, both maybe. In this world the line doesn't matter anymore. They shout something, but the wind steals the words. All I hear is intent. They're coming closer, fast. My rifle feels heavy in my hands. Do I fight? Do I run? The storm makes both impossible. Then, I remember the rumors. If I'm heading north, so are they. Maybe they've heard the same whispers of water. Maybe they're chasing the same hope. Trust is suicide. I know this. But alone, I won't make it far in this storm. They close in. One raises his hand, palm open, as if to signal peace. Or maybe to distract me while the others flank. My heart hammers so loud, it drowns out the storm. This is the reckoning, the moment every choice has been dragging me toward. Do I cling to survival alone, or risk everything on the fragile thread of connection? I lower the rifle, just slightly, enough to show I'm not pulling the trigger. Their eyes widen, surprise cutting through the dust. We don't speak. Words are useless in the storm, but one of them gestures north, then waves for me to follow. I hesitate, the weight of every betrayal I've ever witnessed pressing on my chest. Then I step forward. The storm doesn't ease, it only grows. But now, I'm not walking alone. We push north together, bent against the fury of the wind. Dust lashes our faces, but we keep moving. Somewhere ahead, the storm breaks into darkness deeper than night. Somewhere ahead, there might be water, or death. I don't know which waits for me, but for the first time in years, I'm not facing it alone, and that, maybe, is the turning point. When the storm finally broke, the world was unrecognizable. The silence after was worse than the roaring. For hours, the sky had screamed. Dust, wind, debris hammering the earth like the fist of a god that had forgotten mercy. Then, as suddenly as it began, it relented. The wall of grit thinned, the wind slowed, and light bled back through the choking sky. But the silence that followed was absolute, like the planet itself was holding its breath. I lay on the ground when it ended, half buried in sand, lungs raw from breathing air that felt like razors. My body ached in every joint, skin blistered from friction, lips cracked and bleeding. For a moment, I thought I had died, and that this stillness was the afterlife. But the pain proved otherwise. Pain is the one thing the world never runs out of. The strangers survived too, 3 of them now, 1 lost in the storm. I don't know his name. I don't think I ever will. That's how it is. People vanish like sparks in the wind, and you don't ask questions. They didn't speak at first. We just lay there in the ruin of the land, breathing shallow, watching the dust settle. When one of them finally did break the silence, it wasn't with words. It was with a canteen pressed into my hands. Water. Warm, metallic, tasting of leather. The most beautiful thing I've tasted in months. I drank coughed, drank again. My body screamed for more, but I forced myself to stop after a few swallows. Old habits. Rationing keeps you alive. I passed the canteen back without speaking. The man nodded, eyes hollow but not unkind. We rested until our legs remembered how to stand. The storm had stripped everything bare. Buildings were nothing but jagged teeth rising from the dunes. Trees, what was left of them, snapped like matchsticks. The radio station was gone. Nothing remained but twisted metal poking from the sand, the antenna half buried like a gravestone. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at what used to be my world. That booth had been my coffin and my lifeline all at once. Every word I spoke, every memory I poured into the static, it ended here, swallowed whole by dust. For the first time since I'd started broadcasting, I was silent, truly silent. And yet, I didn't feel the hollow I expected. I felt released, like I'd carried a burden I didn't know how to set down, and the storm had ripped it from my shoulders whether I wanted it to or not. The strangers didn't wait long. They turned north, wordless, like they'd already agreed that silence was safer than conversation. I followed. My legs screamed with every step, but I kept moving. Because what else is there? Travel after the storm is harder than before. The land is buried in drifts of dust, reshaped into dunes that stretch for miles. Landmarks are gone, roads erased. The sun beats down hotter than ever, glaring off the pale grit until it burns the eyes. We walk by instinct, chasing the compass, of rumor, clinging to the direction north like it's salvation. Food runs low quickly. I'd packed 3 cans, the strangers had 5 between them. Rodents, if you can still call them that, scurry at the edges of ruins, thin as wires, their eyes wild. Once, we corner one beneath the rubble and roast it over a scrap of flame. It tastes like rubber, like ash. We eat it anyway. Hunger dulls disgust, water is worse. The canteens pass between us, each sip smaller than the last. We search for signs, dark, soil, cracks where moisture might linger, metal barrels left behind. Most are empty. Once, we find a puddle shimmering in the shadow of collapsed concrete. Too shallow to scoop, too foul to trust. One of the strangers dips his hands in anyway, lifts them to his mouth. The others stop him. Fists fly, voices break the silence. Rage, desperation, fear. The storm may have passed, but its hunger lingers in us. I sit apart while they fight, notebook open on my knees, scratching words into the paper with trembling hands. The storm has changed the map. The station is gone. The land has no memory. Only we carry what was. Nights are worse. The heat bleeds away, leaving the air cold as bone. The silence presses harder. Sometimes I think I hear the static of my old broadcast, phantom signals in the wind. I imagine voices out there, calling back to me. I wonder if anyone caught my last message before the station died. Did it matter? Did it reach anyone? Or was it just swallowed whole like so much else? I dream of Elena and Sarah more often now. Not the way they were in life, laughing, painting suns. No, I dream of them as shadows in the storm, faces blurred, reaching hands made of dust, always reaching, never touching. I wake with sand in my mouth and tears I can't spare the water to shed. But even in dreams, even in despair, something has shifted. I'm not walking alone anymore. That matters, even if trust is fragile, even if betrayal waits around the corner. Survival feels different when footsteps echo beside your own. Days blur together, hunger gnaws, thirst burns. The land doesn't heal. If anything, it worsens. Every storm strips more life away. Every sunrise feels hotter than the last. Nature isn't recovering. It's rewriting itself into something new, something harsher, something that doesn't care if we fit into it. Still, there are signs, not of healing, but of persistence. A sprout clawing up through the dust near the ruins of a fence. A flock of birds wheeling overhead, chasing some hidden water we can't find. Life refuses to quit. even here? And if life refuses, who am I to surrender? I've been thinking about choices, about the rifle I didn't fire when the strangers approached in the storm, about the path north I chose instead of waiting to die with my radio. Every step since then has been bought with pain, but also with possibility. I don't know if the Enclave exists. I don't know if the rumors are lies, but I know this. For the first time in years, I feel like my story isn't ending. It's continuing. The storm didn't bury me, it pushed me forward. Hope is dangerous. I've said that before, but maybe it's not hope I feel. Maybe it's stubbornness. Maybe it's defiance. Maybe it's just the will to walk one more mile. I look at the strangers, faces rapt, eyes wary, bodies gaunt, and I realize we're the same. Each of us carries ghosts. Each of us has lost more than words can hold. But we're still here, still moving, still refusing the silence. That, I think, is the lesson the storm left behind. The world won't heal. It won't forgive. But it hasn't taken everything yet. We are still here. And for now, that has to be enough. I don't know if this will be my last message. Maybe tomorrow I'll find another transmitter, another generator, another way to push words into the air. Or maybe tomorrow I'll be nothing more than dust on the wind, another nameless body swallowed by the silence. But tonight, as we rest in the hollow of a collapsed bridge, I feel the need to speak, not into the static, not into wires and machines, just to you, to whoever's still out there, to whoever hasn't given up. The storm is behind us now. The land it left behind is a graveyard, but it is also a beginning. Everything has been leveled, erased. The map of the world has been rewritten in dust and scars, and yet here I am, still walking. That has to mean something. We haven't found water, not yet. The rumors that dragged us north remain just that, rumors. But we keep moving because movement itself is survival. The moment you stop, the world buries you. I've seen it happen too many times. I used to think survival meant clinging to what was lost, holding on to memories, voices, scraps of the old world. Maybe that's why I sat behind the microphone for so long, speaking into static like it was prayer. I thought if I kept the past alive, then I wouldn't lose myself with it. But the truth is, the past is gone. The world we knew isn't coming back, and maybe it shouldn't. We broke it once already. What matters now isn't what we lost, it's what we choose to carry forward. I carry my daughter's sons, even if they're only in memory now. I carry Elena's laugh, even if it only echoes in dreams. I carry every name I've written in my notebook, people who mattered once, who still matter, because someone remembers them. That's what survival is, not just breathing, not just walking, but remembering, refusing to let silence have the last word. The others don't talk much. Maybe they don't trust me yet. Maybe they never will. But last night, one of them handed me half a can of beans without asking for anything in return. It wasn't much, barely a mouthful. But in this world, that's what hope looks like. Small, fragile, almost invisible. And maybe that's enough. The sun will rise tomorrow, hotter than ever, burning the land a little more. We'll keep walking. Maybe we'll find water. Maybe we'll find nothing but sand. Either way, we'll keep moving, because movement is life. I used to end my broadcast with a plea. If you can hear me, you're not alone. I don't know if anyone ever heard those words, but tonight I'll say them again. Not from a booth, not from a tower, but from the edge of a broken world. If you're out there, keep going, keep walking, keep breathing, keep remembering, because as long as we're here, as long as we're stubborn enough to endure, the silence hasn't won. The world may be gone, but we are not. Not yet. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning of something new.